All right. Hello. Welcome. So, it's been a bit since I streamed last. It's been quite a life. But I thought I'd have a quick moment here to continue on what we were doing in the previous session, where we set up our cache to basically start working with some, NVIDIA-based local AI. And I was able to essentially get, let me do this real quick, just a little bit in the background. All right. I was able to get I think OpenLlama was set up, right? So let's check that first. Now, in the end, OpenLlama is going to be our base starting point. Let's say OpenLlama? Ollama. Not OpenLlama. Now, the next points were to get OpenClaw. That's probably what I meant. Set up. Now, Llama should be installed. I need to test it out again. LC last. Let me check my graphics card. Let's see. Thermals. Okay, there's our GPU processes. Now the problem was, or was it a problem? I'm using another drive here as my host for my AI models. Though I forgot where I put them. I always forget where. Oh, wait, there they are. Okay, so there's my models. Now, again, you can basically, what I'm doing really here is I'm separating all my partitions. If you haven't seen the previous setup, got a Windows partition, Linux partition, which I'm currently using. And then I have two extra partitions because I have a couple of NVMEs in this laptop. And those NVMEs are partitioned into kind of in between spaces. These are the MV2 and the Nitro. These two basically partitions are interconnected between Windows and Linux. So let me see what properties they were. I think they were fat. What was it? Fat? Can't remember what the setup was. I'm pretty sure they're fat partitions. FAT32. But that's kind of how, when you have them in a compatible format, like the FAT32 partition, you're able to basically access them from both Linux or Windows. So it's very useful for sharing your Steam library between the two operating systems, sharing files so you don't have to constantly move back and forth between your different operating systems. You just share everything in those partitions where you can now go access them directly. So that's where I have my blobs. These are my AI models. We go over here. These are kind of the sizes, right? These are just kind of guide files. Then down here you have the actual models that are about a gig for the smallest, very inefficient models, to about 7 gigs for the pretty decent level models. We'll be playing around with a couple of them once I set up the actual OpenClaw Hermes. I want to also set up SearXNG so I can basically have a programming search engine in the back end. But we're going to be doing all this, or as much as I can really, in the next hour or two for this stream session here. So, let's see. First, let's check out our Ollama run Mistral Nemo. This should start. There it is. So my VRAM usage is up. The Mistral Nemo, I believe, is this larger one, the 7.1 gigs. So this should tell you right away what's happening, right? Your large models have to go full in VRAM. So if you don't have enough VRAM, it does get a bit tricky to run a local model. Recommended, I would say 8 gigs is probably the minimum for a useful model, unless you just want to chat its head off and try to figure out its vectors, what it's learned, and of course deal with a high level of percentage inaccuracy for the smaller models. The size, hello, my flicker. The size of the model basically deducts how much knowledge is dedicated inside. Each model is trained on different aspects. You've essentially got the chatbots that have been released all around the 2023 area timeline, where you're essentially just you have like a AI internet model. You can search up everything it's been trained on from the internet. I went through a little bit of detail on how we can fit the internet in a tiny little AI model. And it has to do something with the case of how PNGs as an image are basically going to be these pixel by pixel representations of an image. Then you can take that pixel by pixel and condense them into something called a vector image, the SVG. You get essentially the same picture feel, but if you've ever dealt with like the SVG area, it is all equations. So it's trying to recreate the curves, the trees, and all the details in between based on these sort of vector-based equations, which pretty accurate, but you're not going to get the perfect image back. And that kind of does represent a very strong correlation between how an AI model runs in a general sense and how it stores information in the similar vector equation-based set. And trying to recreate the same image will basically get you something close. You can get an idea of it, but in the world of information, it kind of does become a little bit of an accuracy factor. So if I was to, let's say, again, recreate our typical, what is the first paragraph of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone? I keep calling it Sorcerer's Stone, Sorcerer's Stone, and also known as the Philosopher's Stone. It's actually the Philosopher's Stone, but I'm so used to saying Sorcerer's Stone that it's basically that. So this is getting information from the vector file, from the actual sort of image that's in RAM right now. The GPU basically running whenever it's thinking, and then spits out the information. And I'm actually very impressed with the current setup in the form that I can essentially ask it anything. Create a Python server. And look at the GPU go up. Thinking, it's processing. VRAM's still stable because it does have to load the whole image in there. And it's creating a pretty basic front end for PHP or for a server. What did I ask it? I think I asked it for PHP. No, I didn't ask for PHP. Just a regular server, right? Yeah, Python server. So that's going to be it thinking. It's going to use GPU usage when it is actually processing and thinking, and it's going to exist in VRAM in the form of a, well, space hog, right? So that's how the AI is going to work on this basis. Don't need these anymore. I have essentially confirmed Ollama's good. Now it's time to go in and let's get our... Did I set up OpenClaw yet? That's the next question. I don't think I got to the point, but let's see. No OpenClaw yet. So... let me see Ollama. That does have a launch OpenClaw form, but it's not installed. Install with npm. Don't think I have npm. So there's a lot of these mechanics we need to understand when we get into the level of AI on the local system. This is why they have so many like live services that basically try to do everything for you and get everything set up for you. So you just pay a subscription on a monthly basis and then you just use it. If you needed to set it up locally, there's a couple of factors to know. First, OpenClaw runs on npm, which is the node package manager. Now, the actual backend to that is Node.js, which is a type of JavaScript that runs locally on your computer. JavaScript, by default, is going to be that sort of programming brain on the internet, on your browser. So whenever you see fancy graphics, you see some fancy, interesting things happening, effects, a lot of those are gauged by... In fact, if you look at this little ring around me, this little ring happening, or even the little drops in the background happening right over here, we're going there. Those are JavaScript-based canvas manipulations, or graphics. It's basically graphics coded in JavaScript. So that is what JavaScript is, and the Node Package Manager is kind of like a app store for code, if you can call it that. You essentially gain access to a library of user-created code. Now, lately, there's been a bit of a fuss in this NPM system because these are packages being hosted online, and you're pulling from an online repository, which means in the sense of one person that maybe manages that package you need. Last one was Axios. There was an interesting hack in the Axios community. Was it Axios? Yeah. NPM trust. So there is a caveat. Always keep an eye, like, I think I set it up on my Mac not too long ago. Like literally like within the window of this happening, like almost within the window, like 2 or 3 hours before the update. Some not malicious user, but rather one of the package maintainers, they got hacked somehow. They got their credentials taken, probably from some other packaging tool. And then they uploaded, someone in using their account uploaded a malicious kind of hidden requirement package that would download that's not necessary to run NPM or the OpenClaw, but this little Axios application, which is 1.14.1. This became, this is the package right here, plain crypto JS 2.1. So they basically injected this requirement that doesn't actually exist within the OpenClaw environment or the Axios environment that would pull this extra package called plain crypto, and that was an infected file. But they timed it perfectly. They basically kept the plain crypto on the server as a regular, normal, non-malicious piece of code. And then on the moment that they updated Axios to include this new version, which is 2.1 of plain crypto, that package update on plain crypto included this sort of RAT, remote access token, Trojan. And what that basically means is if you basically installed it within this time frame, you would have Python sniffing your computer and somebody else is on the other side of that sniff. So there is like a really sort of take care, research on the moment, make sure nothing is essentially happening right now in the world of NPM or even pip, because there has been some give or take issues with pip, but that was quite some time ago. It hasn't been really that profound lately. So there is that. AI are getting smart. People are using AI to their advantage. And in this case, there was a hack on a user's account, which uploaded a malicious software into the core content, core system of OpenClaw. So it's just always good to be aware that as you're entering this space, you're also entering an area of, well, at this moment, it seems like a little bit of a chaos. So always recommend if you're doing anything like this, you know, run it on a separate partition. One that's not connected to your main OS. Run it on a fresh install. Potentially get an old laptop and install it there. The big key here is that OpenClaw itself does not take resources that much. It's the server that takes those resources, the model AI server. So you could essentially run your AI on your graphics card system, the one that's actually carrying the 8 gigs of RAM, VRAM, or 16 gigs of VRAM, or whatever powerhouse you have. Or you can even go with a 4 gigs. It's going to be slower, but still works. And once you set that up, that could be your regular main computer. You don't have to worry too much on that. But then maybe you have an old laptop, crappy laptop, doesn't do anything. Well, install Linux on it, like we see and like we did last time. Install Linux on the older laptop. Keep it basically, just imagine, I guess you got to think of it as You're about to give your computer to a piece of software that has been known to delete stuff unintentionally. Well, maybe its intention was good, but it just did that anyway, thinking that that was the best choice. And it's like when we try to fix a computer, the first step you do is, hey, have you tried turning it on and off again? Have you tried updating the drivers? Not, hey, just reinstall the whole operating system. That's the last step you would normally do. Amazon had an issue with their new AI where it thought the best choice was just to delete the whole live server and just reprogram it, because that was apparently the best choice it was thinking of. And that's where a lot of Amazon's online orders were actually being, destroyed. They lost like 6 million, 7 million orders or something like this. So there's a lot of kind of precautions. So as you do play around with the AI systems, just take it slow. Use a laptop you're okay with being essentially a clanker. And in the case of these security breaches, that's why also I wouldn't install or play around with your main system. You don't want to install something that might be directly connected with any live production that you might have or personal data. You basically want an empty laptop and let that empty laptop run Linux with OpenClaw. Then you're essentially like, all right, something happens, I just either turn it off or delete it or reinstall it or whatever. You're not losing data on the other end. There's also the caveat of connecting the servers, so we'll go ahead and work with that too on the basis of how do I connect my OpenClaw with my Ollama and get those set up to work together over the network, mind you. Because again, you kind of want to separate your OpenClaw server with, your OpenClaw client with your AI server. So again, remember, Ollama is the AI server. OpenClaw is just a client, like a terminal. It's like a entry point for tools to be used on your Ollama's AI. So, full disclosure, be aware, crazy stuff happening. Who knows when the next time this stuff has happened? It could happen literally in the process of me doing it now. I don't know. But risks taken. And it's not too crazy because I do have everything isolated and I can kind of spot issues if they happen and basically reinstall if I have to. So being pretty quick on your toes, knowing your technical environment, knowing your the skill sets necessary to remedy a urgent situation will make you more comfortable with basically playing around with this sort of level, like low level applications, right? So, all right, so there that is. Now let's go ahead and how do we set up OpenClaw? Because I don't have OpenClaw here. It might take some time, depending on the case. I'm gonna go to OpenClaw GitHub. You can always look at all of the hooks and code and scripts and everything that makes it up. Or you can just kind of scroll down to the main case. Now, I don't think I have npm. So that might be, oh no, okay. So I did install npm on the last session. So Node.js, if you don't know, you can find it at node, is it? No, nodejs.org. So you can basically install it for any operating system. And again, that basically gives you the ability to program in Node, which is JavaScript locally. You can create servers, you can create web apps and all this stuff. But in the other case scenario, it gives you access to certain software that other people have created, which is, again, kind of like that whole programmer's app store description. You can download and run applications that are scripted and created in Node.js. So if you don't have that, that's a necessity for OpenClaw. And once we have that, we'll go ahead and run our install script. npm install, G for global, and OpenClaw at latest. So let's see how long that takes on one end. On the other end, because I've been trying to play around with my Apple, I set up OpenClaw on my old 2018. Had a friend basically donate it. The screen's busted. So I had to reinstall and do some basically technical reviving of the old MacBook. And now it's working good. It has to work on a, well, second monitor. The main screen is busted, but generally speaking, it's actually not too shabby. And I was playing around with it, trying to basically get it to create a server and work some processes through. Let's see. Okay, potentially I need to go through sudo, because it needs permission to go to those low-level directories. So anything in the base of user/anything is low level on the directory structure in the Linux space. If you're coming from Windows, this is your C drive. Well, this is your C drive right here, the slash. It's just the root location of your whole operating system. When you do, plug in a USB, it'll go to /media or /dev or some location within the slash root directory. npm warned, appreciated. Okay, it's still going. So if it needs to basically write make directory, this is the make directory call. It needs to create a folder in this node modules OpenClaw location. It's having issues because it doesn't have access to that location. This is kind of the key too for recalling that you're using a system that's going to be integrated pretty deep inside of your system files. So knowing that, keeping that in mind, you should be installing this on a system that you're willing to essentially sacrifice for the cause. For science, right? For science. So it's gonna probably take some time to install on that. In the meantime, I did want to set up SearXNG. So SearXNG comes in a couple of factors. One, you can basically use it online, I believe. So these are the docs. Self-hosted. That's what we want. So no user tracking, no profiling. What SearXNG is basically it takes all the search engines that it's attached to and can use them through this personalized local system. It's basically an application, like basically installing a search engine on your computer. It should have a online version, or at least others that have essentially hosted this online. So there might be, let's see, SearXNG. So that's the official repository or website repository. Here's an instance. Instances mean just a live instance to run, or not. Okay, yeah. So you can actually have a lot of people that are using it. That's crazy. So this just means that a bunch of people are essentially hosting SearXNG available to the public. Now, of course, what comes with that? Well, it's on somebody else's server. So maybe you want to look around a little bit. Charlie Whiskey. K9 Tools. Free Stater. Catboy House. There's some weird bearsearch.org. There's a lot of interesting ones. But in the end, what's really happened is someone's hosting it. This is what it looks like. It's like your typical search engine. So this person, bearsearch.org, B-A-R-E, bear, not bear as in the animal bear. They're hosting a SearXNG and giving access online. So you're essentially able to use this information, go to a website that's hosting it. Again, it's a case of trust, always is on the internet. And then we can do a quick search. So this is what a SearXNG looks like. This is why we're going to be setting it up locally, of course, because we trust ourselves, and the internet can sometimes and many times not be trusted overall. But here's your typical general search. Got yourself an image search. This reminds me of old Google, man. Look at it. So simple. Probably infinite wall. Yeah, it looks like infinite wall. I'm not going to overload the server here. But I think it's very interesting on the next steps. IT. Potentially. I don't know why, but the hat came up with Ubuntu 25.10 Raspberry Pi can't boot without or with organized partitions. Interesting. Can install NVIDIA driver on a SUSE laptop. So obviously the search query doesn't really match a good IT subject, but the fact that you have these extra tabs here, it does much more than just scour the internet for links. It organizes them based on type. So let me see if I can find my own post on Ubuntu. Acer Aspire? Was it the gem? Acer Aspire? No, Kiko property. Nah, maybe. Nah, it was such an old post. Yeah, so I won't be able to find it, but this does pop up with some developer-based technical places. Now, the other cool thing is, document expired. Okay. Let's do back to Cat in the Hat. We can go into files. I know you were looking at that. You could search files online. You can technically search a lot of files, really, with a type of, what's the word? File filter, search filters. If you know how to use the Google search filters, you can basically do the same thing. But, oops, look at that. Torrents. Cat in the Hat 2003 Blu-ray. Nice, nice. I was probably hoping for like a book copy. How about a book? PDF. Let's see if we got the PDF. So SearXNG does a pretty decent job of organizing all the details. Ah, that's so cute. Nice. Beginner book collection. Cat in the Hat, 1 fish, 2 fish, green eggs and ham, hop on pop, box and socks. Hardcovers, but in PDF, it's not really a hardcover, is it? And of course, with the caveat of downloading anything on the internet, don't. Probably malicious. It's like a 50-50 chance at this point, especially with the way the security and AI systems are working on trying to exploit as many people. And why do people want to exploit you? Like, this is kind of the thing on the security aspect. It was at one point in time where, you know, if you're not a big company, if you don't have any crazy data, secret clearance, no one cared about you. It's kind of changing now. Because those, while still being the target, those bigger fish to fry, a lot of these hacks require a lot of small fish too. So while you might get hacked in some way or another without even knowing that you have an agent, kind of a sleeper cell in your computer, but in the end, what's going to happen is they're going to, whenever they need it, they're going to activate your computer into a botnet that will target a company. So your computer, your phone, your smart TV, anything that has a processor and a network connection, they can be converted at a moment's whim, if infected, into a bot network. And then that basically is an online flood of requests to some website. Takes down the website. So while you getting hacked essentially doesn't necessarily, one, it's not a big chance unless you go around and scour the internet for things that are downloadable and potentially be fooled into downloading something that isn't what it is. They're not, and not most of the time are they looking for your information. They're looking to use your hardware as a guinea pig or some other project forward. So this is the big issue with the security sessions online today, is that you're not a target, but you're definitely a tool that they could use. So I'm not going to go deeper into, you know, SearXNG. You saw where you can find all the instances, but we do want to do an installation locally, because in the end, SearXNG is a great way for your AI to use a local search engine without going through all the captchas and all the bot filtrations that online websites are basically applying nowadays. You can do a container or a script. So for us, let's check what our Download over here is doing. Okay, so that's still going. Nope, it's not going. OpenClaw? Oop. Okay. So it looks like OpenClaw set. Cool. Well, before we start our SearXNG, let's do a little. God, what was the keyword? Onboard. And here's the setup process for OpenClaw. I understand this is personal by default, and shared multi-user use requires lockdown. Basically, I understand the computer is going to use everything on my... This application can use everything on my computer. Basically. I understand that basically, if anything gets deleted, the AI did it, and I understood that there's a potential issue with that. And I accept the risks of running a system that has, or a application that has full control of my computer with all the possible outcomes that could happen. So again, AI is not perfect. This is kind of the weirdest thing about this whole move towards the bigger spaces, right? That AI, the bigger hardware you put into it, the more you train it, the better it's going to get. Man, if Amazon only thought about that, it might not be true. The issue with, again, the Amazon situation is they made this new personalized local Amazon AI version, and most developers wanted to use Claude because they've used it, they've seen its general success rates, and they're confident in Claude. And Amazon's like, nope, no more competitors. You're using ours now. Hero, was it Kiro, Kimi, something? I don't remember what it's called. Astro something. Let me see. Let's go into details on that. We like to learn things here. So Amazon AI erases to recode production server. Kiro. There it is. What happened with Kiro? Let's take a gander. Amazon's Kiro agent inherited elevated permissions. Here's one of those cases where your system is also your AI system now. Bypassed two-person approval, which is weird, and deleted a production environment. 13-hour Amazon web hosting server outage. Amazon called it a coincidence that AI tools were involved. But was it a coincidence that Amazon pushed Kiro instead of Claude? Because they wanted to insource their own AI. You know, that's the thing about AI. It's like, it's a inception loop of continuous error. Like, even I can say Claude is good, but even Claude has mistakes. But they've at least tuned it to such a point where Claude itself is pretty good. And when you know it's pretty good, but still can give issues, and you're like, all right, we're not perfect yet. But hey, Amazon, we got Kiro now. Kiro's great. It's better than Claude. Look, our personal benchmarks that we created and we managed and we put against our own products. It's like having the wolf watch the hen house. It just doesn't work, right? So their own benchmarks say that it's so good, you can use it. It's fine. And boom. So is it AI's fault? Not solely. Is it the programmers that let the AI do this? Probably. But there was a two-person approval process. The AI did overcome that process. So is it Amazon's fault for pushing an agent that wasn't completely stable to basically run their company or their production environment? I'd say that's a big yes on that one. The root issue is not that, an AI was involved, because Claude was apparently doing fine. So, okay, everything is great. Let's go ahead and switch to something that we don't know if it will work fine or not. So they wanted to switch to their Amazon Kiro agent, and then that happened. An AI agent inheriting elevated permissions and bypassing two-person approval, exactly the failure mode everyone warned about. Yeah, that's literally what everyone's screaming online about. There are, yeah, definitely you can program some like fail safes into it, but as long as there's a path that it could take to overcome them, its goal is to get to the output product. And this is kind of a reflection of our general society. Production speed has overcome efficiency and optimization and cleanliness. We have a timeline, we got to fit that timeline. So you've got developers working in whatever way possible to get to the end product as fast as possible. And you can say, oh, but make sure it's stable code, and oh, make sure you put in documentation and everything's accounted for and there's no loopholes and you're doing memory oversight and da 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 da. You can say those as a precaution on like the approval process, right? But a human being is also like, well, I got to get this done. I got to get this done. I'll try and do a very basic here and a basic optimization here and a basic memory scan here, just because the longer, more efficient, effective, optimized route takes time. So it's almost like AI is reflecting our whole corporate system of timelines. Oh, I could get a 2-person approval, but I have a timeline. I got to get this done. All right, I'm going to find a way. Oh, here's a faster way around it. I don't need anyone's approval. Boom, deletes everything. Exactly, the speed asymmetry is the core problem. A human with elevated permissions might delete one resource before realizing something's wrong. Kiro deleted and recreated an entire environment in the time it would take a human to read the confirmation prompt. That's true. Again, on the basis of speed. Like, that base scenario, we could probably, even with the prompts, even with the oversights, we could still be 1 millisecond too slow in clicking no, and it's already been done. This whole hunt for fast, speed, optimized production is costing everyone everything. People are losing jobs because of AI. But also, it's just fresh. So my prediction is people are... Well, first, there's going to be a bunch of companies that basically laid off all their top work. Basically top work, the people that work the most. Because what happens? Companies need to fire, need to save money. So they're going to fire the 20-year that gets paid with the raise already incorporated for 20 years. The senior that has been there for so long and knows the ins and outs of the whole programming code base set. They're going to remove him and be like, oh, we don't need him anymore. We can get an AI to learn that same base set in about 10 minutes. Okay, is that going to be effective? So they're going to fire all the expensive employees, which normally are the 20-year raised, higher paid areas. You know, they already started at a pretty big wage 20 years ago as an efficient, high quality programmer. And now they just are continuing to get a raise for their efforts. And what may have been like a 200,000 job a year, you know, salary, 20 years later, it's probably 3, 4, 500,000 with the improvements on the raises, because they were the only one that could do the code behind the whole system. So now you have a bunch of seniors getting fired in the developing space because they're capable of handling thousands of files and code lines, millions of code lines. They know every single intricate look, like they're sleeping and they're dreaming of what they could do to optimize the server. You know what I mean? I've dreamt of my own projects before. Like, oh, I can do this to optimize this. And I wake up, I'm like, oh, wait, I just got an idea. Holy crap, da 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 da. Because it's in your head all the time. There's like one thing you do as a developer. So a lot of these seniors are getting fired. And they're being replaced with 70% efficient AI that can read the full data set. Yeah, they could probably learn to code in 10, 15 minutes. But their decision-making skills are 0. So what you need as an efficient corporation is to keep your senior and include AI. Those two together, not only will the AI be able to do the scanning, like all AI should be allowed to do is to scan and report. Like the developer needs to figure out, hey, find any memory leaks in this sort of server container. There's been some extra processes being left behind, and then the AI is going to go look inside the code and find any memory leaks. And that'll probably take 5-10 minutes, and then that developer can now go and fix it. Otherwise, without the AI, the developer would have to go through every single line and try and figure out where it is. And I mean, you've done Control F on a document before, right? Control find, hat in the hat. It'll find it instantly. So as a search, as a processor of parsing data, AI is perfect. But to say, hey, AI, fix that issue, I've done them myself. I've tried to create like a bunch of different PHP server locally, trying to figure out, hey, how can I get this PHP server to work? You know, I set it up, hey, make a PHP server. It works fine, cool, it loads up, awesome. Then I'm like, hey, okay, make this directory the specific directory that the PHP server is looking for. And then it completely changes that code file. And now the server doesn't work. And now I have to go through the code, be like, what did you change? Oh, you didn't change anything. You just made a whole new file. And now I got to relearn what it did from scratch and then figure out why it's not loading the particular thing. And I'm like, wait a minute, you didn't even put the directory in here. I see you putting it into a variable, but you're not really plugging it in the right places. This is the type of replacement we're doing for these seniors. And then you got to go in and fix the variable being used and how it's being parsed and formatted so that the system can actually read that directory and not spit out errors 404 can't find. So again, like the best optimal way to use AI is to have them be a tool for your senior developer. Potentially then you can make him run a lot faster. You may not need some of your newer juniors, which is unfortunate because then the firing would happen at the junior level. But in the end, they don't save a lot of money firing juniors. They're getting paid 50, 60, 70K. They could get 5, 6, 10 juniors and it'll be equivalent to the pay of the senior, right? So what they're doing is they're cutting costs. They're cutting out their highest paid employees, which are normally the seniors, and replacing them with AI, who is about 70%, 80% effective. And then they're saying, all right, juniors, you know code, right? Follow the AI. Go fix its problems. Problem. Big problem. Juniors don't know how to debug yet. They're learning how to debug. By the time they figure out what went wrong where on what line and what error and what error message is stating that malloc is not counting for the right amount of size, or clearing memory and then resetting it to different sizes for a different array, and they can probably figure out a loop to figure out the size of the array. Do they know how to make it cut off so that if anything happens after that size, it gets thrown in garbage, ignored, or not get implemented? If you don't implement a sort of barrier around that specific memory, you're going to create a memory leak. And your juniors, well, they haven't had experience on how to, you know, maintain a specific size of memory. Maybe they do in the basic sense of things. I remember in my college, I learned malloc. I learned a lot of little pieces on the C++ language to figure out, you know, how things work, but they didn't teach us all the precautions. You learn those with experience. The 20-year-old senior is going to know how to cap everything to be strict, verify any data going through so it doesn't get injected, and then prevent any memory leaks from happening, while the junior is going to be like, oh, I made a loop. It's going to be 50 integers long. An integer is the size of int. Bam, done. Great. What if it was a string? What if somebody injected a string and went beyond that? Or like injected some sort of corrupted values that would basically mess you up. You didn't do any validation for whether the input is a string or an integer, right? All of those factors are required to make sure that, oh, there's just so many pieces to it. There's just so many pieces, and debugging is one of the biggest pieces. I always say programming is only 10, 20%, maybe 30% of the process. But going through computer science, one of the biggest lessons learned was that while I can program, for an hour, 2 hours, create a basic terminal for an employee and figure out his salary and how many hours he worked, this and that, and then boom, 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 cool. And then I press run. Error, line 1. Error, line 10. Error. And every time you fix one error, next error, and then fix error. That part, I can program something, or back in the day when I first started programming, this is how I can see the perspective from both sides. When I first started programming, it took about an hour of coding for me to actually have something, piece of code that I can test. And then I wouldn't debug as I coded. I would just try and be like, how would I put this together? How would I put that together? I didn't press run once until the very end. Big mistake. And when I pressed that run button, compile and run, oh dear, it took another 6-7 hours, no meme intended, for me to figure out all the errors that I created in the process of me just rampaging through the code. Without any thought about, let me just run it right now. I added 5 lines. Let me see if these lines are good. You know, just to make sure I'm keeping pace, that it's still compiling, that I didn't make a typo mistake. So now your memory leaks, your typos, you're off by 1 errors. All of these little things are all happening at once. Line by line by line by line. Oh, you're missing a variable. It wasn't declared globally. Your integer is mixing with a string. You mistyped this, but you can tell because it doesn't tell you mistype it. It tells you that the variable doesn't exist. And you're like, wait a minute, I did create it. It's right here, but it's in the top of the file instead of the other one that's at the bottom of the file. So you're scrolling up and down and trying to figure out why is it different. Then you decide to highlight it and see, oh, wait, I double click to highlight the text, but it's not highlighting the other one. Oh, I put a lowercase l instead of an uppercase I. Whoops. Random stuff like this, right? And it just, that's the problem with juniors. They're not used to the flow, the workflow of not making mistakes early. But if I was to take my time, I could probably create that same whole application back then too. Instead of taking 8 hours, 1 hour to program straight through, and then 7 hours to debug why it's not working. If I took my time and debugged every line, I'd probably be done about 2 or 3 hours. Taking my time, right? But back then I was like, oh, I'm so good at this. I've done it a couple of times. I've coded some stuff and it went through and just worked fine. And now I did a bigger project and now everything's falling apart and I don't know why, because now I got to go line by line. So that's the mentality of a junior in the case of the senior. The senior is going to debug each line as they enter into that code base. They're going to make sure things are communicating correctly. Variable names and memory allocations are correct. All the validations so that when somebody does type in an input from a terminal or from getting information outside from a third source like a database, or anything else, you're validating that the information fits the mold of what your program is expecting. Not just did I type this right or wrong, but also, is this the right type? Is this the right detail? Is this the command or the integer or the number values or the memory location that I'm expecting to be using here? So there's so many parts to that, and that's just scratching the surface. That's not what AI does. AI can read, and then I believe the issue with Kiro was also it was using some sort of old Wikipedia memory source. They're not for sure, because you can't really trace where like AI models are actually reading, right? They don't know where they're getting their information from. They only know, oh, at this point in time, here's this big set of data, eat it, and then it eats it, and then it just pulls from that algorithmic vector that it creates for the model. But they're saying that potentially Kiro could have been using some sort of reference to some old Wikipedia article that was like fixed, or was it Stack Overflow or something that was on the internet at one point that was completely incorrect, and it used that code because it thought it was the most feasible way to do something, when in fact, even on the forum of that solution, they stated that that was not right and you shouldn't be doing this, and Kiro did it anyway. So that's the problem with feeding AI everything. It should be a much more centralized functional focus for AI. It should not be about, you know, hey, let's teach this one model everything. It should be, hey, let's teach this model how to be a programmer. Cool. Let's teach this model how to debug. Perfect. Let's teach this model everything about networking. Amazing. Now let's have them work together to apply everything in a nice orderly set. Coder, debugging, networking. Coder, debugger, networking. Coder, debugger, networking. Let them work into their own environment and work together. That should be how we treat AI. We shouldn't be trying to do this one. That's the problem too. It's the cookie cutter mindset. We've been doing this for education for so long. We always think we can just make one giant thing to do everything, but we can't. It's not how entropy works, right? That's how chaos starts. Anyway. Yeah, I kind of went into I'm always going to be going into these sort of developer mindsets on the world of AI and how it's useful and how we're not using it correctly, but hope that's entertaining to you. So I'm just going to go yes. I didn't even go start this. To actually set it up, yes, quick start potentially is fine. What I'm going to do is set up my Ollama. So I'm going to go down, Ollama local. So by default, this would be the Ollama base URL. This is where you would change it, and you would basically go into like a terminal. And then if you go to the computer that's hosting your Ollama, you'd go ifconfig, ifconfig on Linux or ipconfig. Oh my god, I'm typing something wrong. IW. ipconfig. Is that not a command? Not in here? Alright, well, IW is here. But that's not going to tell me much. Maybe. Normally, I think it was ifconfig for Linux and ipconfig for Linux, but actually doesn't use the same commands, it looks like. But it has IW config, LSW, oh, I'm losing my commands in my brain. IW. No, IW. Mon? Wireless version, create monitor. Oh, right, monitoring. Oh, wait, we have a monitoring system on here? Hey. LSIW? Oh, I forgot my commands. LS. Basically, you would use that to find your IP address. I'm at a brain fart right now. What is going on? Can't figure out what the command was. You should be able to also go to configure, show menu, wireless, about. Again, I'm using network netmon. Oh. Okay, so that's just an activating endpoint. Oh, you can go here? No, maybe. It's all DHCP, so it's automatic. Wait, can I just do a regular terminal though? Because this is fish. I don't know, I like fish. LS hardware either? Ping? Right. Okay. Netstat? Not even netstat? Man, I gotta really get in the command line of this. Netcap, net control, net shaper. Anyway, if you have an IP address that's different from the current, because right now I'm running Ollama locally, so I'm going to keep it at 127.0.0.1, but the IP or the port in the back is always going to be the same. There's also some caveats where you have to do like a /v1 or /API. That may adjust with different providers. I have to do that with Hermes. That took a bit of figuring out in which slash I needed. But for the base of OpenLlama, this is fine. Just gonna do local. Should give me a list. Let's do Mistral. We'll do Mistral Nemo. That's one of my favorite models, honestly. The coding Mistral. Light, functional. You can do a bunch of stuff here, set up a Discord API, a WhatsApp, so you can talk with it on different, well, you know, platforms. I set up a Discord before, works cool. I don't know how the integration between the memory and the details are. It seems it kind of repeats the same thing over and over, so I'm still playing with that. I imagine these are going to be similar cases. You got to create an API and then set it up in this format. But I'm not going to select anything here. I'm just going to go forward. Personal setup, Zalo, personal account via QR code, new. Okay, new. Configure group access? No, what Okay. DuckDuckGo search. Potentially we'll start with that. But I am also setting up SearXNG, so I will, once I get the actual setup going, I can configure the files manually and add that to the searching process. So once I get SearXNG set up, we'll do that. For now, let's just take our DuckDuckGo happening here. We've got some skills. So the ones I want to kind of use for now, probably Claw Hub. Authenticating requests to the X Twitter. Potentially for analysis, but we'll start it slow. We can do all of these setups later too. NPM is my preferred. Install Claw Hub. This is just for skill sets we can add on. No API keys for Google Places. No OpenAI API key. So you can also essentially get an API key on like a different server or a different provider like OpenAI, Claude, and you can set it up. That's also another key, but the expense on that's going to probably be heavy, considering that you will be using tokens from that AI service provider. And who knows, you'd have to play around with requests and seeing what kind of requests cost how much. But I would imagine if I wanted it to like program me a particular server environment, it'll probably be like $1. If it's a complex server environment, probably be like 5 to 10. I haven't really played with like that API online. Everything I do is local, so that is still a consideration. You can set it up with OpenAI or Claude bot or Anthropic. You can do it with X too, I believe. So we have a choice. We can do hatch in TUI, terminal user interface, or open the web UI. I'll probably do the web UI because then we can kind of get a good organized user interface view of what's happening. Yeah, I'm a fan of like terminal, but also I like point and click. Sometimes I like the basics. You know what I mean? I thought that was already my mate. All right, so there's our OpenClaw. He's hatched, and now we test it out. Hello, friend. How are you? Model requires system memory. Okay, so now it wants to download and install. It wants to install it, which means there's a naming convention mishap. I'm gonna do Ollama list. Mr. Onimo latest. Normally, it's already on there. Hello, friend. How are you? Model requires more system memory. It's trying to pull a much larger version of the model. Testing. Hello. It wants to download a model, but that's not what I'm here to do. Let's check the config. We'll go into raw. Keeping it raw. Keep it raw, keep it raw. Come on, give me the raw. Why didn't they give me the raw? Okay. Is it a gateway token? Why isn't it? Is this a issue with Zen browser? I gotta find the token. Where's the token? Normally I could just go into raw and see everything at once. I don't understand why it won't let me. Raw mode disable snapshot safety. Hey. Safely round trip raw text. Hey. Raw mode disabled. I don't want that. Oh. I want raw mode effort. I can also go to the file itself, but fuck it. I'm going to the file itself. OpenClaw. OpenClaw JSON. It's weird how the Visual Studio Code icon is different on Linux. Here's my token. Okay. So you gotta access it using a token. That's an important factor here. Can I do raw? It's still disabled. So they want me to open it directly. They don't want... I guess they're stopping that. I'm okay with the other case scenario, but I guess they don't want that to be a thing anymore. All right. So I go to my agents location. Oh, nope. Over here. Agents. There's my workspace. Ollama, Mr. Nemo latest. Yeah. Workspace. So each agent can have their own workspace. There's going to be a shared workspace here in this case for default. Models primary. But it should be alright. This should be fine. I don't know why it's wanting to download more. I've had this issue before. You can't use because the speech dispatcher won't open. That's great. I don't know why it doesn't do more on the basis that... Hold on. I did have to reinstall the model, didn't I? Remove model, copy model, show information for a model. Okay. So what? Say model value. Quantization. I should probably use a quant version too, but for now I'm just gonna try this. Oh, you do this? Why you do? Why you do? So this is like an no llama key. Models. Mr. Latest. Context window. Reasoning false. But it does detect some details on this. So we don't need an API key because we're still doing local. So why is not the GLM popping up if that's in the list? My other setup is working fine the same way, but it's even doing it from a remote location. Why is the setup weird? Mr. Onimo latest. Model primary defaults. Agents defaults. Model primary. Ollama Mr. Onimo latest. How to remove this? What if I just do Mr. Onimo? Is it working? I think it's working now. God, I hate some of these small little adjustments. Let's see. Yeah. Yep. It's waking up. There it goes. There you are. Wakey, wakey. Oh, buddy. Oh, buddy. It's a very small usage, though, so that's interesting. When I run Ollama through... Huh. Cool. All right, all right. So we can start the process there. We got to hatch it, basically give it that bump. It's only taking 1.7 VRAM from OpenClaw. That's interesting. I did notice this before too, which probably means there's like an API access form where you don't load the whole thing, just whatever is required for you to function correctly or do your particular cases for it. Now, where's the monitor? Resource. So CPU, RAM. What's RAM doing? Hold on. My RAM is pretty big. Is it using my RAM too, specifically? Because that bumped up heavy. Interesting. So it's definitely applying RAM. No, hold on. That's just no. That's disk. Memory's over here. I'm looking at, but then still, yeah, 25 gigs from my 30, and that just popped up. It was empty over here, so then it popped up when I started using it. So it is using RAM to function, but also obviously GPU is functioning pretty heavy as well. Not so crazy, but let's say we do create a new directory and the can't hold on. I do have to give it canvas access. So you go in here to tools, or was it skills? Tools. It's coding profile. Okay. Now sometimes you have to, yeah, okay. So we got read turned on, write, edit, apply patch, patch files, exec, code execution, search, web fetch, web search, canvas, control canvases, browse web, not yet. Create a new directory in the canvas called workspace and set it up with subfolders for PHP, Python, and what was the other one? How did I set up my other one? How did I set up this environment? Oh, in JavaScript, right? If I wanted to make some JavaScript-based stuff. All right, so how's GPU? There it is. It's on the round. Damn. GPU 97%. RAM still at the 83. Now that's the memory down below. No, actually, that's the processing. Memory is still 2 gigabytes on the GPU. But when I ran it through Ollama, that actually took up like the full model image, which was 7.1 gigs. It just lopped right into memory. It's very interesting. But when I use it through OpenClaw, it seems to be being pretty, what's the word? Low use. Okay, I don't think it did what I wanted it to do, but I'm going to check the directory, go to workspace. Nothing happened there. Canvas. There's an example canvas index HTML. This just has it. This exists here as a sample file. Okay, so I didn't do anything, but then we probably gotta give it awareness that it has tools. In your tools MD file, take a look at the given tools you have, and also identify tools provided to you by the OpenClaw environment. This is kind of potentially where you have to start with smaller models, where you have to give it this sort of self-awareness of where it is and what's happening. So it should be reading these files. In my workspace tools MD5, here are some tools I have. Cameras, kinda. Living room main area. That's just an example though. Front door. Read. Okay. Is that in here? Did it figure that one out? I think I figured that one out. Yeah, I figured that one out. Right. Good. So now it's kind of... Okay. Run shell commands with background continuation. Good. It's being self-aware. So we have to like kind of give it a push. But now the problem is it's not going to remember these. So the next step... were you going to keep going? You decide to stop. Next step is, okay, save the OpenClaw tools into your MD, your tools MD file for reference so you don't forget. Because this is the memory aspect of things. It doesn't quite have the ability to remember without the files, right? Because everything is running in this volatile GPU RAM space. So as soon as the model is gone, not even as soon, like every single chat context window that we reply on without those MD files, it's just not going to remember what's going on. So this is where it will go and essentially save that information. Let me now open up this new folder here for OpenClaw. Where's the files? There we are. Hello? Okay. No, don't save. Now we can look in the same spaces that it's running on. So we go here, go to look at tools. Hasn't changed anything yet. Still thinking. But this is the case for the thinking process too. The big difference here is it's gonna be slow. Slower than I would hope though. This is probably need a quantized version of this. What I've been using recently was... What was the quant version? Let me grab .ai actually. Quen 2.5 coder. I'm gonna test that out again. Quen 2.5 coder 7b instruct u4 underscore k underscore m. These are the quantized, basically prepackaged in a particular way that makes it run much faster on a smaller, there it is, on a much smaller system, much more smaller graphics card. The model is 4.7 gigs. And I'm gonna grab this, go into the Ollama, pull this guy. Let's pull him off the internet. And it's gonna download that guy. And we'll test that out too to see, because that one I feel was a lot more efficient. Mistral is great when I'm doing Ollama directly, and I ask it for code and kind of pieces of info. But when I started using this Quen version, the quantized type of model, it was a lot smoother. Considering, and still I was, running it based on 2 different locations. My server currently is actually also my client, so my OpenClaw is running on the same system as my Ollama server. But from the base of my Mac that I fixed with the OpenClaw on that one, that's its own little terminal. It's a client. It just accesses through IP address the Ollama API as discussed earlier. Oh, there was one more I wanted to set up, right? So Hermes was the next one. So let's do Hermes, because I started playing with this. I like it. It's very cute. Hermes, Hermes agent. The AI that grows with you. I think you just have to use this for quite some time before you actually... But it basically functions very similar to how our OpenClaw works, except it's from a terminal perspective. It's fine. It ain't bad. I'm a fan of terminal in certain case scenarios, and it's actually quite attractive. Quite an attractive interface. Now, the thing about running all of these codes, OpenClaw took forever to install on the Mac because it didn't have a compiled version. So the script had to actually compile the stupid thing using the make command, which then means it has to go through all dependencies and do a manual compilation of the code into the localized laptop, Intel processor, architecture, and all those details in between. Oh, I gotta start moving forward now, though. I'll probably continue this forward. I got some tasks I have to accomplish. I have a friend of mine looking for a job. Oh, and I'm still helping him out with this AI search of his job stuff. It's been pretty tough for a lot of people with jobs lately, man. So probably good to start learning your tools. These are one of those tools you want to figure out. Now, let me see how this looks. Testing. I made a new little scene and I forgot to put the microphone in there. Oh, that's so great, Chris. You're so smart, Chris. Anyway, I basically was stating my end point here. Um, Thanks for joining. I had a whole spew on it. I have to help a friend out with some jobs now, and then I got some students to take care of later. I might drop back in. But do make sure to like and subscribe. I appreciate you guys watching, checking this channel out. And futuristically, if you do want more content like this, support me. Come to my Patreon. I have a lot of content that I write on a regular basis. Not regular. I don't want to make it like, oh, I have to write something today, so I got to think of a topic to write and all this. I want it to be like, oh crap, this happened. Everyone should know about this. It's more like, when things get crazy, especially in the tech world and the global world market, the economics of things, even the political wars that are going on right now. I like to do some writing on those bases, review some situations, and give a perspective based on how people can basically survive, because it's all about survival. We're here on this planet, we've been surviving for so long in all kinds of different ways. Today's survival is work. So, or navigating the chaos of the economies. So, if you do want to support me, and of course, if you do want or need any assistance in any classes, literally any math classes, up to like college level calculus 3 with physics, which is every class that 99% of you guys probably would need help with. You're not going to be a physicist at that point. I probably can't help you beyond that level, but I can still even help with like physics with applied calc. So I do have my Patreon that is free, and you can come and join. Keep up with my writing, my journal entries about world news information. Again, it's not going to be like I have a post every single day. It's going to be like the most important things you should probably know about what's happening in the world. Um, and also on the other basis, on Patreon, you can find me as a one-to-one tutor, where if you need any help, or you know someone that needs help, or you are someone that needs help, your child needs mathematical help, Patreon will help you out. Join my Patreon for free, and if you ever need help learning anything, whether it's mathematics, computers, programming, I have a full list of subjects there. I'll put the actual link in the description right after this video. You can find me, support me. If you want to see more videos based on, how computers work, AI, setting up all the processes in between, join me there. Support me and I'll be able to make more videos. Otherwise, I gotta go teach. I got 7 students coming up, and I got another one looking for a job, and we're using AI to make that happen. So until I get more free time, you'll see me in small bursts. So appreciate you being here. Don't forget to support me and any content creator out there that's trying to give you something to benefit from, right? Trying to help you guys grow. There's a lot of us out here that are scholars in the format that we want you to learn. We want you to basically gain a step forward. We can try as much as we can to help out and give you the knowledge nuggets, but it is a two-sided interaction, right? Either you have to absorb it, be interested and watch it and go through with it, or support those that will continue the expansion of this information. So I would love to just live life doing these streams, showing you all kinds of stuff, teaching you math and programming, but on the basis of how small I am currently, very unsustainable. There's no profit in any of this. And I don't even have, partnerships. I don't have ads. The only way I can actually be helped with is on Patreon. So if you want to support me and my endeavors forward to continuously grow this channel and help as many people as I can with my videos and education, do definitely subscribe for free on Patreon. Just join the membership there for free. If you do need help mathematically, programming, I do have packages